Good afternoon. Namaste. Let's do a quick little sound check before we get started. Once I know for sure that everyone can see and hear me, we can go ahead and begin. We are going to be taking people on screen if they would like today. So if you would like to come on screen, you can put it in the Ask a Question section. I'd like to come on screen for my question, or you can put it in chat, but sometimes if we have a lot of people here, the chat scrolls very quickly. Everything sounds good? Okay, perfect. Good. We've been having some internet distortions here at the center. So please do let me know if you're having glitches or internet distortions, because our upload speed has been a little slow, and that the combination of that with channeling isn't always exceptional. So please let me know if that happens so that I can report back to the team that manages that. Oh, good morning. Let's just breathe for a minute. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my space and for allowing me to be in your today and on that we've shared. Many of you in class here with me today have been with me sharing this journey since we began the Patreon mentorship programs in November. So you've been patrons and following the work so closely. And following your own guidance, which I am so grateful continues to lead you back here. And if it is aligning in your journey, I am ever grateful that you continue. So thank you for that. This class, we're going to take it directly from you. And there's a reason why we're doing it in that way. So I'm going to be reading questions from the comments section of the post itself in the Patreon newsfeed. I'm also going to be switching back between that and the Ask a Question section, and for anyone who wishes to come on screen. And we're going to go one to the other, starting 3, 2, 1. Okay. First question is from Patreon comments section, Sakina. The question is, I know I ask and my questions are heard, and I know Baba answers all my questions. She follows a Christ conscious devotee. She's a devotee to Sai Baba, Satya. Who don't know what she's talking about, there's a big Christ conscious connection there with that being. I know Baba answers all my questions, and I am not receiving these answers clearly, and that is my frustration. I want to start here because that is a simple answer, yet the ego makes it incredibly complicated to answer. Since the beginning of what we call time, when we began to perceive a separation from ourselves and God, we began to perceive Christ conscious beings such as Baba, Sai Baba, and Jesus, and all beings of angelic natures as separate from us, which actually is the opposite of what they want us to do. Therefore, when we do that, when we treat a separation as if we're asking a being that is more divine than us, more holy than us, more sacred than us, we automatically lower our frequency. So this answer is basically about being reciprocal with the being with whom you're trying to connect, and reciprocal in energies. So let's go back to the universal law of reciprocity as a point of reference. And within its statement and definition, it means that whatever you put out into the universe, it is reciprocated. There is no bias within the universe's answer. And when you're putting it out there, it is reciprocating. Why? Let's go deeper. Because it is of your creation. All of the beings that you are seeing are of your creation, of your lineage. And the more you can understand that God in them is God in you, to the deeper extent that they cannot be separate or higher than you, the more you're going to shift your frequency higher and at that level. Because every time you pray towards someone, or you go prostate, is what they say in India, when you prostate yourselves, when you do all those things, I have tried that with the masters, and I've prostrated myself and bowed and prayed and done all of these things, and they don't teach me that way. When I do it, they normally will do the same to me and bow towards me in an effort to show me to get off of my knees and to understand that they are me and I am them. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So as long as you are asking him questions in a way that kind of dictates that you believe that he is more holy than you, then it's not that he is or he isn't in the terms of what the ego can explain. Okay. It's that your energy shifts to a lower frequency, much like that of a radio dial when you are driving your car away from a tower. So for instance, many people these days, use their iPods in their cars and use their playlists and don't have to worry about radio signals. But I'm showing my age a little bit here. When I was growing up, as a child and then a teenager and then a college student, driving back and forth to university, relying upon radio FM. And then I lived in a small town. So I was always driving back and forth from this small town to my university, to see my dad and my brother. And as I was coming home and getting out of the city and going closer into the rural areas, my signal was getting less and less and less. The reason why I'm explaining it this way is because every time you do not see something as a part of you and you start to put time into your levels of inquiry, or there's the two things that block: time or lesser or higher than, the concept of the power over and power under paradigms. Every time you use one of those concepts, power over, power under, or time, it separates you right away. And then you begin to believe that you're in a different position energetically, and the universe just honors it and kind of gives that staticky, fuzzy, unclear answer. To answer your question, Sakina, he talks to you all the time, and his answers are, how Baba is. He is incredibly succinct and short. He answers in like 1, 2, 3 words tops. And sometimes he will tell you the answer is do nothing. The answer is do nothing. And the answer is not. A lot of humans misinterpret a Christ conscious being's answer as being because he didn't give you a clear path of, yes, take that investment. Yes, invest in that stock. Yes, buy this, do that, move this, move here, move there, be in this relationship, don't be in that relationship. Guides kind of don't work that way, because it would be profoundly disempowering to opening up and expanding the power of your Christ consciousness within you. Okay. So that is why they don't, it may appear that they don't answer, but sometimes the answer is silence and do nothing. And it's more than sometimes. With the Christ conscious beings, the answer is that way. The majority of the time they'll say, it doesn't matter. The specifics of that answer matter not. Therefore, be silent, go within. And the answer is not yes, not no. None of these answers are bad. What they're wanting you to do is do nothing. And within that silence, you will get such a knowingness, such a profound, intense answer of yes or no when you do that. But what is unclear is the confusion created by your ego when you're looking for a yes, buy this house that's blue on the corner at Green Street. Do you see what I'm saying? Guides just don't work that way right away. And even when they do, it's more symbology at first than it is clarifications in what you think their answer should be when you are expecting egoic thought response. Is that clear? Does everybody understand that answer? I know it was kind of a long-winded thing, but these teachings are different. Someone was saying we had a little bit of a interesting sound issue, so let me know if it continues. All right, so we got that one. Let's go on to another. I understand that, Amanda. When we ask a question and receive an answer in our minds, how can we tell if it is our ego responding or our guide or higher self? I have a few different answers. This is not a this or that answer. Sometimes the ego will come in first and bombard you. And there are particular reasons and ways to know that it's ego. So one of the reasons is you get confused, or you become fearful, or you become emotionally overwhelmed with something that is negative. The emotion would be a negative emotion. That is ego. And when you do that, it shouldn't be that you go deny it. The ego actually works with you so that you can integrate what's there, that wants to integrate and heal. In order to hear your guides and feel them and get to know them more deeply, the ego works in conjunction with your higher guidance. It's not there to try to thwart you. Okay? So when things feel confused or angry or frightened, when you get emotionally overwhelmed and you don't know why, that's normally ego saying, stop, breathe, feel. This is kind of like, in early educational systems when they teach you the fire drills and they say stop, drop, and roll. The stop is for you to stop and observe what's going on. So when I get this way, I will publicly leave scenarios when I get this way. I just did that yesterday where I got so overwhelmed with an emotion that I just went, oh, stop, stop, breathe, listen, feel, stop, breathe, listen, feel. So I had to stop. I had to go home to go into a pranic meditation and breathe so that I could listen, so that I could feel what was coming through, which required a profound observation and integration in that moment. Many people have asked me this question about my periods of illumination and enlightenment expression in this lifetime. And they ask me, well, if you go through enlightenment periods and illumination, I go through immense periods of samadhi, and I'm experiencing waves of enlightenment, and I'm headed there. I never thought that I would say that in this lifetime. But I am. It is happening undeniably so. And in these waves of enlightenment, sometimes the ego will say, you still have something that you really need to sit with in this moment and to allow to come into your presence and just feel you and understand that that cannot be denied. So stop, breathe, listen, feel in that order. Stop may mean that you need to extract yourself from unpleasant, overwhelming environments when you may be the one that ego is causing that unpleasant feeling. You could be in a perfectly pleasant environment, but ego says, oh, there's something here. It's yours. Go deal with it. Please do. So, all right. So going back to that, you can tell it's ego when you get overwhelmed by physical responses. I get a lot of anxiety in my body. I get a lot of tense feelings in my neck and muscles as a channel and medium when ego is trying to catch my attention. And this isn't bad. Ego is a wonderful servant to the master that is the heart. But it does not do well in your spiritual development when it becomes the master of the heart and the heart is serving it. This is when empaths all around the world begin to kind of go a little bit backwards in their spiritual journey. This is when emotional projections happen and all sorts of things. So first of all, ego, it does that, and it's not trying to throw you off of your spiritual enlightenment path. It is trying not to thwart you, but to cause you to go deeper within. Are you guys following me? Give me a, and so it is. The inner child me that was raised Southern Baptist almost went, give me an amen. Except I don't do amens. That was like sort of programmed from a long time ago. So give me a, and so it is, right? You Southern Baptists watching me are going to completely relate to how quickly that can happen in our programming. So there it is. Give me an amen, or and so it is, or bless you, or whatever. But let me know you're following me. In response to, is it your guide or your higher self? I would like for you to go deeper into this question. Your guide and your higher self cannot be separate according to laws of oneness. The universal law of oneness means that everything that you see that you think is a guide is an external portion of you in a dream reality that is a reflection of God within you. They cannot be separate. So inner guidance is a part of, I'll put it this way. There's a projection in the dream that we call spirit guides or soul family. Sometimes we call them subdominant guides, dominant guides. There are many different labels and definitions that humanity likes to place, in this dream environment. As we are expanding, that's what third dimension is. It is a dream. For those of you who aren't following me, please follow my book, A Course in Grace. So close though. A Course in Grace and A Course in Forgiveness, which is listed and pinned at the top of my spiritual communities. When you listen to my readings of that book, it's only like 3.5 chapters in right now, but you will understand what I mean by everything you see is a creation of a dream. Okay. So those are guides. Everybody that you see, all your friends walking around in bodies are part of your soul families that are actually spirit guides to you. All of the spirits that you believe are deceased and on the other side of the veil and helping you, those are spirit guides, and they are also a part of you. They're also part of your soul family, kind of at this expanded level. When we begin to create in the dream ideas of soul family, when we create that. So in this matrix environment, we call them spirit guides, watchers, angels, things like that. Okay. Guardian angels in particular, all of those guardians, there's so many different things that you guys call them, but they are a part of your lineage. That is why they're helping you. They are a part of soul family. Now in higher environments, they are you. And they cannot be separate from you. But in this dream environment, we've created the concept that they are a little bit above us and helping us and watching us. So they oblige. So trying to make it simple on all realms and all teachings. So when you talk to spirit guides and guardian angels and watchers and deceased loved ones on the other side of the veil and things of that nature, you will get, depending upon what particular type of spiritual gift you have, you will get various feelings in your body if you're an empath. If you're a physical medium or clairsentient, which means clear feeling, you will get what I call truth bumps or chills. So it's kind of just like a shiver. Sometimes when someone says something that's really, really related to my truth, I just go, yes. So truth bumps, I'm sure mediums, for those of you who follow mediumship classes around the world, you will understand that. That is one way that you know that that's that level of guidance. And okay, another thing is really strong thoughts in the head. If you are precognizant, really strong notions of this is right for me and this is not, or this is aligned to me and this just isn't. And please don't try to judge it or feel guilty about it. If something does or doesn't align to you, you get a strong notion of yes or no that is unavoidable. And sometimes it comes in ways that would not make sense to the ego, where things could be just perfectly beautiful and profound. And you get this notion of no, don't do something. In precognition, you have to pay attention to that, no matter what that is and whether it makes sense or not. So please do follow your guidance, even when it doesn't make sense. Spirit guidance does not always make sense. Higher self. How would I define higher self guidance? So this is the realm of angels, Christ consciousness, your highest and best you, dominant spirit guides, all of that. Okay. Within that, it is clear. It is normally yes or no, or something that's not yes or no, but says kind of a be still. And we talked about that a while ago. Another thing is you will get an immense period of profound, inexplicable joy, love, bliss. Some of my masters call this the samadhi. So when you're going through that, it's just this overwhelming feeling of amazing, like being on a celestial cloud. And you're just like, just energetically, wired. So when your higher self is talking, you're listening because it feels good. And even if the advice that the guidance is giving you from higher self is not easy advice for your ego to handle, it still feels loving. Jesus could say to me right now something immensely devastating to my physical world, such as your child is dying, but he would say it so immensely loving that I would know for sure that even though I'm going to have a problem with that message, the moment I get out of his presence, just hopefully never. Recently, it's more never. But if I were to get out of his presence with that, I would have a hard time with that. But when in the presence of higher self, which is also ascended masters, gurus and masters of all kinds that are of the Christ consciousness, the Elohim and Seraphim and Oraphim angelics that we discuss a lot in class, all of the angelic presences primarily that come through that, it's just such a feeling of trust that you can be vulnerable around those beings no matter what is coming through. It's just loving. So that's how you know. You don't question it because there's not always a sense attached to it. There's not always like a profound level of undeniability. It's not about that, but you will never question it because it's so true. It's just an overwhelmingly amazing, inexplicable, profound love. Okay, and now is the time where if you want to come on screen, I can take someone on screen. So you can tell me that in chat or you can put that in the Q&A, but I'm looking for someone who may want to come on screen and work with me at this moment. I will wait and see if anyone does. Going once, going twice, and looks like nobody. Okay, that's fine. Then we will go back to Patreon. I found this an interesting question. When muscle testing or using a pendulum, is it required to ask your spiritual team to neutralize you before asking any questions? The answer is yes. Yes, you should ground and balance, cleanse and clear. And then she went on to say, would I do this so that the answer would come back correctly? And if we do this, do we need to ask them to do this before every question? That answer depends upon your level of trust in your own groundedness, and you have to be very aware. In inquiry, there are several things that you could ask yourself to make sure that you are in a grounded, aware, clear place. So this is the most important part of the class. And this is how you do it. You breathe in, and it doesn't matter. Some like to breathe in through the tailbone and pull it up all the way up to the crown, and then connect back into Mother Earth, back down through the chakra system at the tailbone. Others like to breathe in through the crown. That's my personal preference. And down into the heart, and then expand it from there. This is my personal preference in grounding. Others like to bring in through the top of their crown chakra, all the way down through their chakra system and connect at the tailbone and hold it there. Others like to breathe in through the top of the crown and all the way back down into Mother Earth and then back up again and then maintain this flow like this. It doesn't matter as long as you are breathing. That is step number one for grounding and clearing. Step number two is higher self inquiry. We're going to call upon the higher self by asking the very important question, who am I? When you ask this question, this should be while focusing on your breath and preferably with eyes closed, because that will cut away any distractions. Who am I? And what's going to generally happen is you're going to, for those of you practice meditators and followers of one of my greatest masters, Sri Ramana Maharshi, in his practice, which is called self-inquiry, he pretty much notes that when you go into that as a practice meditator, your mind will stop. And in the moment of stillness of all thought, will be such a groundedness and love that extends into a bliss where it's so profound that you will cry tears of bliss for Creator God within you, and understanding that you are that Creator God within you is an amazing feeling. It I've seen people go into this realization with self-inquiry right away with asking this question. I've seen it take weeks, months, years. I've seen people not be able to do it the rest of their lives. So I don't want to overwhelm you or say that this is hard or this is easy. This depends upon you. So you're going to ask yourself, who am I? When a thought arrives, and if you are not a practice meditator, and sometimes even if you are, this thoughts will still arise. So when a thought arrives, the second inquiry is, to whom does this thought arise? A bunch of thoughts come in at once. To whom do these thoughts arise? And normally ego's going to come in and say something. Higher self will come in and say, I am. If you get any question other than that, or complete stillness where you know the presence of I am for sure, then you need to go back to the start of the process, which is who am I? And when thoughts arise, to whom do these thoughts arise? You ask that question. Does everyone understand that? Give me a response. If you would like further understanding of this particular process and deeper answers to this, you can go and read the book Be As You Are by one of my Christ Realized Masters, Sri Ramana Maharshi. Go straight to chapter 4. As much as you may be tempted to read the beginning of the book, please do not do that unless you are already in your mastery. And if you are, you probably don't need to read the book to begin with. The reason why you wouldn't want to do that is because the devotee and student who wrote this book, they're all his teachings, but this student just recorded them and put them in order of the most relevant ones in terms of highest teaching, relevant teaching insofar as highest. Okay, there's all degrees of relevance. So highest teachings are at the beginning of the chapter, and I don't really know why. That's just how his devotee and student managed to want to get that done. And that can be thwarting for someone just beginning the inquiry journey. So go straight to chapter 4, read that. And then if you're curious about the rest of his teachings, go to the back of the book and read the last chapter, then the second to last chapter, then the third, and then go backwards in that way and practice them as you're reading them. These practices alone will bring you into realization just so very quickly if you actually practice them and commit to them. Inquiry is a commitment. So asking who am I, and to whom do these thoughts arise, and then who am I again, just continuing in this relevance and line of inquiry. This is higher self inquiry. The next level of higher self inquiry is what am I? And that's another thing. And how I have perceived an answer is I get a feeling and a knowingness that the what is the feeling state of God that I am in. So I am that. So filling in the blank of that, the that represents all of the God feelings that are before me, that is coming from the reflection of God standing before me. I am that, whatever it is in that being. I find this level of inquiry relevant when I, in what is known as the past, would judge someone. During periods of judgments in my life, if I would look at someone and say, I don't like what they're saying, I don't like their actions, I don't, in less mature periods of my time, I don't like them, I don't prefer them, etc. I don't connect, I don't align to them. When you're doing that, this is an inquiry that will really help you formulate an instant unity with that person. When you say, I am that, open your heart, breathe, and extend that love directly towards that person and feel that connection coming back directly towards you, and focus on the frequency and feeling signature of gratitude. When you can extend gratitude and receive gratitude and understand it coming both ways between yourself and any being standing before you, you can understand why you are saying, I am that, which is less of an inquiry and more of a proclamation. We call it step 2 of inquiry, but it's not actually, you're not inquiring, you're saying, I am that. And you are bowing before that being. Sometimes I do it literally, but most of the time just in my heart, in gratitude for the lessons that are coming back from the universe towards you. After all, it is your creation. And the best way you can formulate a connection to higher self is the understanding that you cannot be separate from the higher self of another being. This level of inquiry works when you are confused in terms of what you think may be something bad in the ether, such as demonic stuff and all sorts of things of that nature. When you understand that nothing can be bad and that everything is a lesson for you, you can actually, without fear, in this level of your practice, breathe that being into you and watch them transmute into love through you. There's an amazing thing. As an elemental shaman, that's a practiced art. Tonglen will teach you this practice if you want an excellent example of the I am that in inquiry. Practice Tonglen, Tonglen. It is a Tibetan Buddhist practice. Okay. All right. Now it's time to go back to Patreon. Looks like we're still doing good on time. I've recently had guidance, almost like a complaint, that I'm not good at receiving my messages. What ways are my guides trying to communicate with me that I'm missing? I'm going to ask you to go deeper than this question. Where and from whom are you receiving this complaint? Observe the God in the being that is complaining. And if you perceive that it may be your guidance that is complaining, I will tell you straight forth that your spirit guides, angels, watchers, guardians, ascended masters, Christ conscious beings will never complain that you are not receiving their messages. That is not true. It is rare that I make such a broad sweeping generalization, but I will in this case. That's not true. And if you hear that, it's likely coming from a level, if you hear it from another human being, it's likely coming from a level of you that is a reflection in them. So that's little you, it's little Sarah. That's the person who asked this question. Little Sarah in that being before you, trying to say, please forgive yourself for not trusting that you are me and I am you. This is a call for forgiveness, that of the I am not worthy, I am not accepted, I am not validated, I am not good enough, whatever applies in any of those messages coming through. So this is a call for something. This is a call for greater love and forgiveness. You understand? Yeah, I think you would. You're not missing anything. What if the answer is you're doing great, but your levels of self-love aren't there enough to accept that truth? That's my deepest sense on your answer. And that's a very common, I want to say problem, but very common dilemma in receiving guidance. If you're not really in a stage of self-love to trust that you're good enough for discerning this wisdom, then please go into deeper levels of self-love about it. Okay? Okay, now it's time to look at the Q&A again. What a great question, Caroline. So glad you asked. I have personally experienced this dilemma. Okay, the question is, how can we still stay in conscious connection with our team when we are sick and in pain? For example, when you feel like crap and you don't feel like meditating or yoga or usual healing practices. Okay, to answer your question very succinctly, do it anyway. That is my first answer. Sometimes ego will try to come in, and whenever ego says, I can't meditate, that is an egoic lie. I'm just going to call it exactly as I see it. If your ego is saying I can't do meditation and yogic practices, it's probably a lie, but that's depending upon levels of, when I say probably, is the yoga physical? Is it something like standard exercise practices that you can't do because of a physical illness? And even then, I want you to question it. Because if it's a physical thing and you are injured, I would like for you to use your logic, because logic, like I said, the brain can be an excellent servant to the heart and the body. But sometimes the brain can hold you back. So I would like for you to practice the who am I in the first step of your inquiry, in your question. Whenever your ego says, I can't meditate, I can't do yoga, I can't do usual healing practices, I can't exercise. Those are all usual healing practices, because most of the time it's just not true. And once you get into it, much like anything the ego tends to make us believe we don't want to do. Once you get into the practice, you're going to feel better and you're going to be glad that you did. So test this response. It's likely just ego speaking. That is my first level of the answer. Do it anyway and question and test the response by asking, is that true? And the only answer that you will know for sure is when you try. And I want you to give it a good, honest, authentic, transparent effort by trying for at least 10 to 20 minutes. And if by, say, 20 minutes absolutely tops of meditation, you're not feeling better, which is highly, highly doubtful that you wouldn't be, then something else is going on. So here's another thing. You cannot be disconnected from your team. It is impossible. And the more you understand these teachings of the impossibility and just so lacking in truth that you could possibly be disconnected from your team. You are them. It's like God walking around saying, I am not connected to Jesus. Of course, God is Jesus and Jesus is God, and it is an impossible connection to lose. Okay. My deeper level answer to your question is to become the pain. Now, this is a practice that I went through when I experienced intense levels of some of the worst pain that is possible to face on this earth with a condition known as trigeminal neuralgia. So when I experienced trigeminal neuralgia for almost a year, it was crippling to the point of dysfunction. And it was my body trying to get my attention to forgive. So forgiveness is vital in those moments, no matter how deeply the pain is. So I started practicing Tonglen during the pain and forgiving myself for having ignored these signals for so long. When I got that dreadful condition, it was a buildup of having not loved myself, having ignored my body, ignored my relationship needs, ignored my spiritual practices for almost 11 full years, ignored the depth that I needed to go to. Didn't ignore it fully. I made sure that I continued to read and provide services for people and to write blogs for the world and to do all of these things that I did at that time. However, I did not go into the depth of my spiritual practice of self-love. And my body said, oh, well, let's give you this disease. Let's give you that disease. And they would give me crazy things like pancreatitis was one of them, almost killed me. Meningitis was another one, almost killed me. And when I was too strong I would just be like, oh, that's nothing, pain's nothing, pain's nothing. Really? Okay, well, let's give you this most painful condition on the face of the planet and see how you can love yourself through it. Then is that going to be the degree of guidance that your watchers and angels and your higher self needs to do in your contract to get you to love yourself? If it is, it's going to happen. It is a wake-up call for forgiveness, mercy, compassion to self and others, but especially self, and self-love. It is a call to any or all of those things. So what you could do is start the Ho'oponopono practice. So for those of you that are understanding, it's, the I'm sorry, forgive me, I thank you, I love you. That's the Ho'oponopono. When you say that and mean it over and over again, say it while in meditation, sing it. That's how it works through me because I'm a frequency being. So I sing it when I feel that way. I sing myself through pain when I feel it. I sang the Ho'oponopono through labor. I've sang through surgeries where I had to stay awake. I've sang through pretty much almost everything, like deep fears. If I'm really afraid of something, I'll sing through it. But when you're singing the Ho'oponopono, that's the most loving thing that you can do for yourself and or another being. Okay. So another practice that you can do to maintain in your conscious connection to guidance when you're in pain is the Tonglen practice. So you can look up the works of Pema Chodron, Pema, last name Chodron. And she is a perfect practicer of Tonglen, and she explains it really, really clearly. Do not ignore your pain, hold yourself, love yourself, and forgive yourself through the pain. And then secondly, breathe in the pain that you are feeling and extend it into your heart chakra, and then breathe out from your heart chakra, okay? In through the nose, suffering in through the nose, expand it into the heart, transmute it in the heart, and then exhale from the heart. So when it gets here, you're breathing in the pain that you're feeling, exhaling it, and as you're exhaling it, it is becoming compassion. So when I do this practice, since I'm a very visual person, I imagine the color of my pain. What does the pain feel like emotionally, and what color is it? And I breathe it in through my nose, exhale it here. And as I'm exhaling it, my heart chakra is rotating, spinning in any direction and expanding, spinning like a little wheel, expanding, expanding, expanding into compassion. Compassion for me is the color of pink and gold normally. So I will expand pink and then it goes into gold. And once it's all the way gold in this practice, I keep breathing in and exhaling until everything that I'm breathing in becomes pink and gold, no matter what it is. And then the pain is gone. That is how I've healed myself from almost every physical condition, which there have been many. Okay, mental conditions too, like depression. Very healed from that as well, much more so than physical. That was a much quicker healing. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. Now is the time for anyone to come on screen if they want to. So I'm watching chat right now for that. For anyone who wants to come on screen with me and you're in a Google Chrome browser and you have good internet and your sound is working, now might be a good time for you to let me know in chat that you want to come on screen just by saying, I want to work with you on screen. So I'll give you another chance for that now. Give it about 10 seconds while I'm reviewing questions in Patreon. Okay, going in 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay, Eva. Patreon question. How do I determine what is their communication and what is my own thoughts? I think we've covered that already. Egoic thought, when you feel unintegrated and not fully in your spiritual development, not fully in enlightenment, there is a fear, confusion, anger, or just lack of knowingness in general, just a lack of something. So that is how you can tell is an egoic thought, because it just feels confusing, as if you just don't have the fullness in the answer. When you get a higher self answer and it comes through thought form, it is normally clear, concise, gentle, sometimes very powerful though, not always just gentle, but primarily clear, concise, not very wordy, and there's love behind it, even if they have to say something difficult. So it's not going to cause negative feelings primarily. I just don't see that happening in higher self-guidance. It's clear. Ego will try to tell you that it's unclear, which is the primary problem in inquiry with most people that sit before me, when they're saying, my guidance isn't telling me anything. And I'm saying, yeah, it is. It's telling you to do nothing. It's telling you everything's perfect. And your ego is saying, but I don't have enough money, but I need to make another investment. But when it's followed by, you get advice from guidance, but it's followed by a but or a question to it, as if something is in lack, then you know your ego is making an addition onto the higher guidance. And we don't need those addition. We don't need any comments from the peanut gallery during those times. Sakina, to answer your question in chat, the answer is sit still. When you go back to the beginning of the class, I think you're coming in when he answers your question in a very deep way in the beginning. The answer is not yes or no. The answer is do nothing right now. Sometimes we think that our answers come in the form of a logical fix, such as an investment or buying something or money or real estate value or commodity of some way, or, something. And sometimes guidance just says, not now. There's something else. There's something else that wants to happen other than what you keep asking him. Hopefully that answer is received and understood. So I'm going to go back into Eva's question because I realized I missed the second part. She said, are ideas I get when I'm trying to sleep higher guidance? it keeps me awake at night, and then I'm restless after. And when I wake up, I think it's all ridiculous, and I never act on these ideas as they seem too unattainable or just plain nonsense. That was your ego right there. When you said it seems ridiculous, unattainable, and plain nonsense, higher self-guidance will not make sense in a third-dimensional egoic environment. My answer is do it anyway. Provided that it is safe and healthy, do it anyway. You don't always understand or get a logical grasp on higher guidance, and they want you to trust. Okay? And then she went on to say, could I receive this communication in a fully awake state? Yes. However, if your guidance is, if you're one of those people who receives higher guidance primarily in sleep, chances are your ego is too active and too chattery in the background for you to listen to it and identify it as higher self. Your ego's blocking, and that's why it's coming in sleep. Please pay attention. Pay attention. Dreams are normally a lot higher guidance and a lot more connected to divine reality than waking answers. It's just my observation. Okay. All right. And speaking of dreams, someone had a question. How do we go about interpreting our dreams when higher self and guides communicate in that way? That is a very good question. There are various ways to interpret dreams when it comes to inquiry and understanding guidance. There's something that you can do, and I talk about this a lot in my classes, in order to get into a deeper inquiry. You can go into like astral projection, bilocation, lucid dream states, and those are very, very strong ways, powerful ways to stay in touch with your guidance. So there are two things that you can do in these levels of inquiry. So in order to interpret your dreams better and to stay connected to guidance in dreams and get more clarity from these dreams, you want to use your specific inquiry questions in the hypnagogic state. The hypnagogic state is the state in between sleeping and waking. So it's like the state when sometimes you're fast asleep or almost fast asleep, and say someone in your environment will call your name, or you hear maybe your child, laugh, and then you wake up, and your brain does interesting things during that time as well. It's like happens when you're going to sleep at night or when you're awaking in the morning and not quite awake yet, and kind of half sleep, half not. Sleep paralysis and other things caused by chemicals in the brain. It's not often a spiritual condition. Those things always happen during the hypnagogic state as well, until you get used to levels of spiritual inquiry, and until you get used to spirit leaving the body, sleep paralysis and other interesting things will happen. And it's just your brain and your ego playing with you a bit. So in the hypnagogic state, there are several levels of inquiry that you could go towards. For example, if there's just something, maybe you want to meet your guides. When I started really being curious about the names of my guides, which did not happen because most of them told me their names and presence, and the presence was so there that if I didn't know their names, I quite frankly didn't care. But when I started to just get a little curious, they taught me some inquiry. And in the hypnagogic state, I would say, my intention is to meet my dominant higher self. And my intention is to meet my dominant spirit guide. That's one of them. My intention is to connect with my higher self. Those are two very strong inquiry states that you can state as you're falling asleep. Don't worry about trying to get into a meditation to do this. Let yourself drift off to sleep. And as you're saying those things, you're drifting off to sleep. And then those are the last states of inquiry in beta. As you slip off, from alpha, and you go into beta, and you go into theta states of the deeper brain waves. Whatever your inquiry is where your dreams will go. And then you get to meet those guides. You can also inquire by saying, my intention is to receive the name of a dominant guide. My intention is my highest and best path right now. My intention is what is relevant. And then there are other states of inquiry that you could go into as well that are very relevant for this. You could say, what is grace? What is acceptance? What is love? What is peace? what is unity, what is connection, what is forgiveness, what is flow. These are all different levels of inquiry that have been taught to me since childhood. When you ask that, you're going to get into some very, 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 very realizing, awakening, aware states of higher consciousness. These are the levels of inquiry that actually cause my greatest awakenings in this lifetime and journey. So what is love? What is grace? What is acceptance? What is flow? What is compassion? All of these things. What is a miracle? I've gone through every what is possible. And then I went on the darker sides. What is anger? Why is anger? What is murder? Why is murder? You never have to ask why on higher states of frequency inquiry, because you already know why. Why? Because God is, because I am. What else? I did the what is rape and why is rape. I've done the what is incest and why is incest. What is pedophilia and why is pedophilia. I have done every state of negative inquiry possible because I wanted to understand what is the love that is on the other side of that. In these dualistic environments, that will bring you into so much forgiveness for what wants to happen. Okay. But in terms of interpreting your dreams when you wake up, you need to sit still. My greatest advice for you on that is stillness. Do not get up and start letting the brain wander. Take the state of knowledge, the state of feeling, the state of frequency, the state of awareness that you had whenever you were sleeping and try to project that further, whatever that feeling signature is, whatever that knowledge is that you're discerning. You can go into another state of inquiry right after your awakening by saying, I am that. I am extending that into my day. I am extending that into my week. You can go very deep in that practice. I am extending that into my month. You can carry over that frequency that you connected with in your sleep state as long as you want to. And it is a very wonderful practice for deeper inquiry with your guidance. Another answer to your question in relation to interpreting dreams, if they are really, really vivid, chances are it is a lucid dream. And you need to pay attention to your feeling state in the dream. That will tell you a lot. If the feeling state is negative, it is some forgiveness or healing or integration that wants to happen. If it's not a realistic scenario in particular, yet it's still vivid and the feelings are still strong, that doesn't mean to say you're going to fall off a skyscraper or get chased and stabbed by a murderer. But what part of you is chasing and emotionally stabbing you? These are emotional inquiry things that happen in dreams to give you the beautiful opportunity of expanding and integrating something. So when you want to interpret that, sit still before you start thinking about where you need to go on your job that day, before you start thinking about what bills you need to pay, the dog needs to be walked, the kids need to be fed. Before any of that things that happens, sit with it long enough to just kind of ask yourself these questions. If you get those type of dreams, what wants to happen is the state of inquiry that I ask myself when I get the brain processing dreams. That's what I call those. When your brain just says, there's something there in your ego that needs a little love, that needs a little forgiveness, and then will integrate more deeply into you. So sit still and know that you are God, and just, you might need to go into a Ho'oponopono, but what wants to happen is a really deep inquiry state that you can sit with for at least 20 minutes in meditation prior to awakening. That is another way to interpret these dreams. Some of those dreams are precognitive. So if you've noticed a pattern of having a dream and then having it happen within weeks and months and years, if you have dreams of death and then it's happening at that time or shortly thereafter, those are what I call precognitive dreams. And they come with an impending sense of doom. It's a really gross feeling to try to explain to you, but I know that those who are observing this class will know exactly what I'm saying. So within the impending states of doom, I've experienced those, I call them prophetic dreams. Those dreams are also very vivid and you know for sure that something bad is happening in some level of the world. It may or may not even be towards someone that you love and in your immediate vicinity. I got a lot of precognitive dreams about the trade tower situation. I got a lot of precognitive dreams about, the flight, in Mongolia. I got, I'm sorry, not Mongolia, but you guys know what I'm talking about, that flight. I got a lot of precognitive dreams about elections and things. I've gotten precognitive dreams about immigration situations and politics and things like that. And when I was too attached to trying to save the world, which is the reason why lightworkers have those dreams would come, and it was for me to release the outcome and for me to no longer be attached to the state of the world. It's a very hard thing to do in this awakening for healers and empaths. It's hard for you guys. You guys want to fix everything, and we cannot fix things externally. We have to pull them internally. Okay. Have just a few more minutes, so now it's time to look at another Patreon question. This is a very interesting thing. I'm going to answer 2 of these so that we can go ahead and get done with the Patreon questions. So the first one is, how do I ask a question and get a more tangible answer? An answer that one cannot deny. That part, that final part of your question, that one cannot deny. That actually gave me quite a little tickle. I actually giggled for a significant amount of time prior to class when I read that question, because your ego will always try to deny it. So if your ego is denying it, chances are it's true. And the more denial you get from your ego, the more chances of it being true. So your ego is actually like the flip side of the coin of everything. So when your ego is saying no, chances are your higher self is saying yes. Just there's a lot that we can learn from that. I know I do every day. Is a pendulum a good technique to communicate with our guides and our highest self? That is a mixed answer. For most people on the planet, the answer is likely going to be no, because most people on the planet are not in an enlightened state of consciousness. And as long as you are not in an enlightened, fully God-realized self state, which is not, it's more of a being than a state, it just is, you cannot rely upon the pendulum, because the pendulum is connected to the energies and electromagnetic waves in the auric field of the body. And the body is a guidance system, but the body is illusion. So what it's good for, the pendulum, if you use it above a body, SRT is one of the ways that I love, that I really connect to in terms of using the pendulum. It is accurate for particularly anti-attachments and things in the body that need some clearing, and is accurate for that. But in terms of trying to connect to your higher self and you're swinging it, your body, your electromagnetic waves in the etheric fields of the aura are going to get in the way of a higher self response almost every time if you have a strong and active ego, and the majority of the planet does. So it's like a yes and a no to the pendulum. What is it that you're trying to connect to? The pendulum connection is good for physical disease. And where is that disease? Emotional check, auric fields that need to be cleared, chakra systems that need to be cleared. The pendulum connection is not good for angelic answers, connecting to your ascended masters, and connecting to your higher self. That's my perspective. No offense to anyone who has a different perspective. Okay, a few more minutes. We've answered that. Now it's time to go to something from the Q&A. Yes, Viramu, that's accurate. He said, when we close our eyes to the who am I question and get the void to inquiry, it feels like a different set or pair of eyes replace my own. Yes, that is a state of transitioning or transforming into, David Hawkins calls this the eye of the eye. You should read that book, by the way. I got a lot of good reading material in these classes. And if you are deeply connected to your I am, yes, that will happen. That is a sign that you are connecting accurately. Absolutely. So thank you for bringing it up. Thank you. Thank you. It feels very weird. It feels like just like something here that just starts to just come in like behind your eyes and then blend with them. And then everything is just that. It feels really good. All right. We have a couple more minutes. Now's a chance for someone to come on screen if they want to, but tell me in chat if you want to. And now is your last opportunity. We're going to give it 10 seconds before we move on to another Q&A question. Yeah, the two eyes blend into one in that. You don't have to be set up with webcam to do it, by the way. All right. Do bugs have souls? What a question at the end of class. Yeah, we'll go for it. Souls are human and animal, and souls are different. Insects have projections and reflections of souls. They are primarily non-sentient, and they don't have that same expression of the body and the soul and the spirit as we do. You know, they do practice some level of embodiment, but it's not to that level. I don't see your question. But if you're talking about bugs, yes, I just answered it. Yeah, I try to be compassionate towards all living beings because I believe that pain is still an expression of something and we don't need to cause it because it doesn't feel good and it's just not compassionate, soul or not. So they still experience pain. So if they still experience pain, we don't need to try to determine if they have a soul or not. I accidentally squished them too. I've still got a lot of questions in the Q&A for me to go scroll through to find that, Robin. Why do they invest? To get you to pay deeper attention to yourself. There's your question. Okay. What would an infestation of bed bugs mean? It's interesting. I feel like it's a matter of irritation that you have with yourself and of life, and irritating with your own levels of lack of comfort and lack of nurturing in your home environment, and the home environment being in here. Yeah. All right, guys, we're at the top of the hour and I need to go about my day. For some reason, my air conditioning isn't working so well in my office. It works in the sanctuary, but it doesn't work in my office. Like something's wrong. So I am burning up, like sweat is just like pouring down my back. So I'm going to go be comfortable. Linda, oh my goodness. I love you. We have the New Earth and Gaia channeling tomorrow at 1 p.m. My facilitator and I will be here at 12:40. And I will see you guys for that. I love you very much. See you soon. Okay.